Called my wife, said, hey, go down to the end of the street and give this guy some money.
Yeah.
He wants $500 to hold it. I'll be back in 2 days. I'll give him the rest. And she's like, for what? That's for a car I just bought.
What's up, all you auto enthusiasts out there? Buckle up for a unique experience where we have custom vehicles and their owners share the spotlight in our studio. Have you ever seen a cool ride and wondered who the owner is or what the history is behind the build? On today's episode of Tailpipe Talk, we'll be speaking with Ty, who goes by Connor Car Show on Instagram. We'll get to know more about Ty, his charity car show, and what inspired him to build his amazing 1965 Mustang. How you doing, Ty?
Doing good.
Doing good today?
Enjoying myself.
Yeah?
Nice cool weather. It's not raining for once. So yeah, it's all good.
Well, welcome to Tailpipe Talk.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I think most of the stuff I talk about is about my son or about the car show, about work, right?
That's okay.
So let's see here. I moved to Texas in 2005. Took a job that basically moved me here. Originally from Phoenix, Arizona. Spent most of my life there. Spent a little bit in California, but most of it in Arizona. I always was into off-roading and mountain biking and hiking and all that kind of stuff. And then when I moved to Texas, I sold my off-road rigs and four-wheelers and RVs and everything else.
All the toys.
All the toys, because I thought, well, in Texas there's no mountains, right?
Very true. Very true.
But there's a lot of other cool stuff
Yes.
here, and so we've come to really appreciate Texas, the people, right? It's green versus Arizona, Phoenix, which is pretty brown, right?
Agreed.
So moved here, started working for a company called Avial, which is an aircraft distributor, and they were bought by Boeing in, I think, 2006. So now I actually work for Boeing, have worked for them officially now transferred over there 3 years ago. But no, it's just, it's interesting. I enjoy Texas, I enjoy the people, I enjoy the community. What I found moving here, you probably found the same thing, is there's a lot more community here. Arizona is very much like I don't want to say a transplant city, but there's very few people that are from Phoenix. Right?
I gotcha.
For years and years, it's people moved there from somewhere else, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But with that, people tended to kind of not necessarily it wasn't the huge family atmosphere, right? If you're standing in line, people didn't just start talking to you. When I first moved here, that was the strangest thing. And I'll talk to anybody, right?
Yeah.
But, what was interesting was standing in line to have people just also start chatting to you.
Absolutely.
Right? And I was like, well, that doesn't happen in Arizona.
Same way.
So
same way in California.
It was different, but no, enjoy it here. Still getting used to humidity. 16 years later.
Oh yeah.
So, but no, it's good people. It's good fun. There's a real community. There's a real family atmosphere here. So enjoy it, and then wound up just kind of trading the off-road enthusiast for automotive, and I've always liked anything with an engine in it. I've always liked tinkering with stuff. I grew up racing motorcycles, and so I just kind of transfer that into some cars now versus the off-road rigs.
Very
so
cool.
it's still a passion, still a vehicle, right? I love cars, trucks, motorcycles. I worked on helicopters for 11 years as a mechanic, so it's just always enjoy being the technical side of it and working on things and figuring things out. And I say that kind of jokingly now because I'll maintain these things, but I haven't built any of them, right? I recognized a long time ago, I can do a lot of stuff, right, as far as working on them and fixing them, but I don't have a whole lot of time between my work and running the foundation and running the car show. There's a lot of people a lot better than me.
Yeah.
Right? And so I want a certain level of quality now.
Sure.
And I can't get it there myself.
Yeah.
Right? I could try, but in all honesty, I'm not that, I don't have those skills that these people have.
Yeah.
So I know what I want, and I can't do it myself. Not yet, anyway. Maybe in retirement I can play and buy tools and things like that, and aspirations of doing something.
There you go.
But right now, it's to have what I want. It's we can design it and figure out what we want and everything else, but usually I require somebody to help me get it done.
I'm the same. I think growing up, working on cars, fixing cars, pulling the motors, transmissions. As we get older, we start families, businesses. It's like now we just open up our checkbooks. Like, I don't have the time, the patience, nor the talent that it takes to build an amazing ride like this,
Yeah, and it does take a lot of time. I mean, even these people that build them, it takes time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand is that they ask, why does it cost so much?
Right.
Or, and we talk about paint jobs.
Sure.
Right? A good quality paint job could be 30 grand to 100 grand or
Yeah.
more, depending on what you want to do to it,
Sure.
right? But if you think about it, these old cars didn't come out of the factory straight.
Right.
And so these guys and gals that are in this business, they spend hours and hours and hours working on these bodies to get them straight, right? To look, because you want them laser straight. And again, they didn't come that way. And so it just takes a lot of time. It's not the paint that's so expensive,
Sure.
it's the labor
It's
to go
the prep,
into it.
yeah.
So these things just take time to get done and built. And, I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a little bit of money to be able to do stuff like that, right? And have some fun. And we just kind of took that and used it to make something good out of it.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I know you brought in the 65 Mustang, but before we got started, you were talking about having some other vehicles. So you're definitely not strictly a Ford guy. Tell us about your other cars.
No, I like cars.
Yeah.
And I told my wife the goal would be to actually have a Mopar now too.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I'd like to have a little bit of everything. I like the different vehicles, right? And I appreciate the different vehicles.
Sure.
So, yeah, right now we're fortunate enough. I've got two 1970 C10s, right? And C10s are super hot right now.
Right.
Which is,
yes, they are.
so fortunately, I bought them before they got super hot,
Yeah.
right? But we actually have an old 1970 4x4, which is pretty rare. It's original C10 on the emblems, but it's a K10 on the tag, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a whole story behind that from Chevrolet, and people say, well, this was a two-wheel drive. I said, no, it's factory four-wheel drive, right?
Learn something new every day. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I guess the first, if you look at Wikipedia, right, whether that's true or not, is the first half of the year or thereabouts, they basically built them going down the line with the C10 emblems.
No kidding.
And it wasn't until later that they put the K10
They put the
emblems
K
on.
to distinguish the four-wheel drive.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know, right? But people ask me all the time, well, it's a two-wheel drive converter. No, that's the factory emblem. This is a factory truck. It's the original truck.
Yeah.
But that one's got quite the story with it because I owned it back in the 90s, actually late 80s.
Yeah.
And I bought it from a friend of mine out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And so it's been a West Coast truck all its life.
Right.
And I actually used it for work. I was in construction business.
Yeah.
So I had a steel rack on it with my pipes and lumber and steel on it and everything else. And it was my work truck. And I had it for, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
And then it threw a rod. And so I had to rebuild the motor. And so I pulled it out of the truck and everything else, took it to a speed shop, had them build the motor, put it back in. And at that point in time, it was a spare motor. And we talk about, being a young family and everything else. It was a spare car. And, my wife's like, do we need another vehicle? I'm like, no, not really. So I decided to sell it to a friend of mine that lives here in Keller, Texas.
Gotcha.
And he drove out right away, bought it for his son. His son didn't want it. Wanted a newer vehicle, so he kept it, right?
Yeah.
And he fixed the AC on it. He fixed the front end on it, did some work to it. And he only lived like a mile and a half from his work.
Sure.
And so he drove it for maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then he bought him a new diesel truck, and then he parked it.
Yeah.
And so it was under an awning for a number of years, and then his son had a boat, so they needed to move the truck out, so he wound up parking it under a tree, and it sat under that same tree for 17 years.
Oh my God.
Never moved. But the deal was, when I sold it to him, was if he ever sells it,
Right.
I have the first option to get it back.
Absolutely.
And he held that, right?
Yeah.
He's a family friend.
Right.
He's a business friend too, but he's a family
Sure.
friend. And he basically said, look, he says, I told you to sell it to you because he sold it to me cheap.
Yeah.
And I told him, I says, look, you can, right now the market's hot. You can make money on it. I says, nope. He says, I told you could have it. Here's the price if you want it.
Yeah.
Here you go. So
That's
bought
cool.
it back.
That's
Then
cool.
we wound up, putting new interior in it. So now it has Texas patina.
Yeah,
Right? So it's
yeah.
got a little bit of a rust flavor on
Yeah.
it.
And when did you buy that back? How long ago?
I want to say it's almost probably 8 months ago.
Oh, wow. So this is relatively
Yeah,
new.
relatively new.
Wow.
But what's interesting is it has a 4x6 steel bumper on,
Yeah,
bumper on the
yeah.
back, and it's welded to the frame. It's
Yeah.
got these steel bars that go about, I don't know, probably 2 feet into the
Right.
frame, and it's welded all in there. Well, years ago when we owned it in Arizona, my wife got rear-ended by a couple young kids in
Right.
a Toyota Celica.
Right.
And it had a welded hitch on the bumper.
Yeah.
Well, that welded hitch went all the way through the front end of that Celica, dislodged the motor, and went all the way up to the firewall before the car stopped. So they were going pretty fast.
Yeah.
And my wife got out. They separated the vehicles. She looked at her truck or my truck, whatever, right, and said, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You kids okay? Yeah, we're okay. You got parents on the way? Yeah. See ya.
Wow, that's incredible.
So the bumper's still on there.
Yeah.
And she says, I can't change the bumper.
Yep.
It has to stay there. And she's actually says, you've got a nice two-wheel drive C10 that's
Right.
a pretty show truck. She says, that one's mine.
Yeah. That's
So
cool.
it's official hers. I got to put AC on it and do a few things, but it's got a new interior on it, new tires and wheels on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's her truck.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting how things come around, right?
Love to hear that. Love to hear that. So then you have the Mustang and then the two C10s, and then you have something else?
So I did. I had an 84 square body that I just picked up from a friend of mine, gave me a good price on it.
Yeah.
And loved it.
Yeah.
Beautiful truck. Nice white truck. It was lowered, 20s on it. You know, had the 350 crate motor in it.
Right.
So just a really nice, clean truck.
Yeah.
Well, Texas and hail, right?
Ah.
The truck was put away, but the problem is the truck in this car and my other truck took up space in the garage. So my wife's van had to go outside.
Yeah.
And that storm came up, and I had to make choices around what do I try to protect.
Right.
And dummy me, I've got a hail protector, and I didn't put it on my big truck. I could have just, if that was up, I could have taken the van to the car wash and been fine, right?
Yeah.
But I had to make a quick choice, and I said, well, the truck's worth more than the van, so let's protect the truck. And I threw covers and blankets and pads on the van trying to protect it, and ran to the car wash. And, you know, we get these hailstorm warnings all the time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't that worried about it. Oh, no.
Yeah.
We got hit with big-time hail. I mean, so it totaled the van. And so to help out, basically, my wife wasn't expecting it, but we said, let's just get her a new vehicle. So
Right.
I called up a buddy that's been after me for the C10, the white one, said, you want it? He says, yep, come get it.
There you go.
And use that money as a down payment on a new vehicle for her. So she's happy. I had to say bye to the C10, but
You got a couple more.
got a couple more.
You're doing all right.
Doing okay. You know, so
And one of each style, 4-wheel drive and a 2-wheel drive.
Yeah, and what's funny is my wife wants to actually go to car shows with me, which is really cool, right?
It is. That's awesome.
She's not a car show person, but she wants to go because she wants to pull that old rusty
Yeah.
4-wheel drive truck and park it next to this nice shiny black 2-wheel drive truck and beat me. And she probably will.
Yeah.
Because more people ask about that old truck than my black one.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, and I guess it's because, and I didn't know this, but in 1970, if I remember the numbers right, they made 500,000 trucks in 1970, but only 2,500 4-wheel drive short beds.
Yeah. It's rare. I mean, it's rare.
Yeah, so they just didn't make a whole lot of it. And so we get asked about it all the time. Is it for sale? Is it for sale? I guess technically, you know, everything's for sale for the right price, but this car and that old white truck are technically not for sale unless somebody offers some stupid money for it.
Stupid.
You know, and there are people that'll do that.
And there are people that will do that. You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct.
So this one's got a story behind it, and that old truck has a story behind it, and so you know, it's not for sale. I mean, if we had to sell, it'd be the black truck, then that white truck, and then this would probably be last.
Yeah.
So this has just got too much of a story behind it with Connor and everything else.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier about the whole C and the K and the truck being a 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. It's interesting. There's always this, I don't know, controversy or conversation that comes up. My youngest son, he's got a 75 K5 Blazer, but it's a 2-wheel drive.
Yeah.
But why is it a K5? Why is it not a C5, right? So and people still ask, people who just don't know, they'll ask like, but it's a 4-wheel drive, right? It's got the K. The K represents 4-wheel drive. But, you know, there were some Blazers made in 2-wheel drive option, you know, and they just left them at K5s.
I've actually never put that together.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, they were all built, to my knowledge, they were all built as K5s.
They're all K5s. Every single one's a K5 Blazer.
Yeah.
You know, but you had I guess, and very much like the 4-wheel drive version of your C10, and I don't know the number on the 2-wheel drive versions of the Blazers, but it's low. It's low.
Yeah. Well, there's that Google search again, right?
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Go figure out what it is.
So with the Mustang, when did you purchase the Mustang? How long have you had it?
Let's see. That Mustang was bought in 2007.
Okay.
So I moved here in 2005. So I'd been here a couple of years. And the funny part is it literally was at the end of my street.
Yeah.
So drive down the end of my street, it's a dead end. You can go right or left, right? Go left and 2 houses in. They've got a fairly, you know, they're a couple acres.
Yeah.
And this was parked out front. And I'd driven by it a couple of days and it was still parked out front. And so I stopped and talked to the guy, and turned out he bought it for his daughter, and they were working on it together. So they'd done some work on it already. Had the 289 in it. It was a blue very similar to this, but it was a Chevy blue.
Oh, okay.
And so they had painted it, but it was an okay paint job, not great. And the interior was that beautiful baby blue. Oh, I hate that color. So, but the price was right.
Yeah.
And it fired up and it sounded good and everything else, and so the price was right. And so I went up talking to him and said, well, let me think about it a little bit. And then I just decided, I called him up the next day and said, I'd like to buy it.
Yeah.
He goes, and by the way, I'd flown to Phoenix. And so I called him up and says, yeah, you still have it? He goes, yeah. He says, I'd like to buy it. He says, well, there's 14 people that have come to look at that thing that all want to buy it.
Yeah.
So you got to give me money now. I'm like, I'm in Phoenix.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but he says, I got to have something. He says, otherwise I'm selling it to the next person. I'm like, called my wife, said, hey, go down to the end of the street and give this guy some money.
Yeah.
He wants $500 to hold it. I'll be back in 2 days. I'll give him the rest.
Yeah.
And she's like, for what? That's for a car I just bought. She's like, I could see her eyes rolling, even though I was 1,000 miles away, right? But there's a long story there. But I've bought and sold vehicles for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And good, bad, or indifferent, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
I've never asked permission, right? So that being said, sometimes it gets you in trouble. Sometimes it doesn't get you in as much trouble, right?
Yeah.
But most of the time, I say most because not all the time, I've been able to sell and make money on them or do different things. So it hasn't been a problem, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But she just looked at me. She said, "For what?"
Yeah.
And so anyway, I said, "Just go do it."
Yeah.
So she went and gave the guy money, fired it up, came back, and said, "That's a pretty cool car."
Yeah.
And so that's when I really started going to car shows, meeting different people.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't want to just go into it right away. I wanted to kind of think about what I wanted to do, right?
Sure.
Put a plan together for how much is it going to cost.
Right.
All these other things, because these things they get costly to do.
Yes, they do.
And so I started thinking about it, figuring out what I want to do, and then about a year and a half into having it is when, less than that, about a year into having it is when my wife got pregnant with Connor. And so when Connor was born, it obviously changed everything.
Yeah.
So by that time, I'd put some money away. I'd bought lots of parts. My wife kept asking me, what's showing up, because it just kept showing up at the door, right?
Yeah.
Good old UPS bringing boxes of stuff to the door. And so I piled up a lot of parts with the thought process of how I wanted to go build this thing. And then when Connor was born, everything got paused.
Yeah.
Right? It just got, life changes, right?
Sure.
And so when he was born with Down syndrome, but he also had a heart defect. So he had 3 major holes in his heart.
Okay.
And so we not only deal with now being new parents, special needs kids, but we got medical issues to worry about as well. And so the car really just sat, right, while we dealt through all this stuff and didn't touch it, didn't do anything. And that went on for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And during that time, I'm still thinking about it, but you've got other priorities, right?
Right.
So Connor had to have open heart surgery when he was 2 months old.
Wow.
Right. He had to have a couple other surgeries when he was 2 years old. So there's things that we had to get past with him. And during that process, I'm still thinking about the car, and it helped get my mind off of the stress of all this other stuff. So I got new job, new son, medical issues, right? Living in a place where no family, right? It's just us.
Yeah.
Hadn't really developed a whole lot of friends here yet. And so it was just kind of a difficult time. So the car helped me kind of get through that.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I did was I had met a guy at Grapevine Automotive. His name's Dane West. And I met him through a friend at work, or another guy I worked with that was a car guy. And so I went and visited with him, looked at his shop and everything else. And it was just a regular repair shop, right? He didn't really build classics or anything, but he had a bunch of classics in there because it seemed like he was always fixing somebody else's mistakes or fixing something on the classics that broke, right?
Right.
And so I talked to him. I said, look, here's what I got.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of money. Here's what I have for money. And he said, I've never built one. He says, I've always kind of wanted to build one. He's a Ford guy.
Yeah.
And he said, I've always wanted to build one. I said, well, what do you think about building this? He's like, I'm game if you are. He says, here's the deal. I'll work on my spare time, and you can come in and work with me if you want and help. He says, but it'll save you a ton of money that way, but you can't be in a rush. I'm like, it's just sitting in my garage now doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so I wound up taking the car to him, and it's one of those things like we talked about earlier. Is you start with a mindset of 10 grand,
Right.
right? All I want to do is freshen up the motor,
Yep.
clean up the interior, do a few things, and drive it, right?
Right.
Well, he took it apart to the point that I asked him to. And I get in there and look at it, and it's got other problems.
Right.
It's like, well, let's take it apart further.
Yeah.
Well, that led to basically having the subframe and the body,
Yeah.
right? Everything else is dismantled on the car.
Full restore.
Yeah, and we look at the engine. The engine had the serial numbers ground off it, so it wasn't probably an original motor.
Yeah.
And I started looking at the build. I was like, well, if we build it back to original, at that time it was worth like 22,000.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spend probably 30 or 40 getting it there.
Right.
And so I just changed my mindset and said, let's just build a resto mod.
Yeah.
Something that I can drive, is reliable, is fun,
Sure.
right? And so it changed direction, but it also changed the price tag considerably, right?
Absolutely.
And so he just kept working with me, right? And I would come down, pay him some money, come down, help a little bit, but really he did most of it,
Yeah.
pretty much all of it. And I would come down and just write checks to him,
Yeah.
right? And then we'd walk through what's going on and everything else. And he learned on this like I did, going through the process,
Sure.
and what to do, what works. And he did some things he didn't like, and he'd tear it out and redo it at his own cost
Yeah.
because he was learning. But it took 4 years, 4.5 years. And there was a period of
Wow.
time where it sat for almost a year with
Yeah.
nothing happening to it. And I'm getting frustrated, right?
Sure.
But he's running a business, and he told me that up front.
Yeah.
So I just kind of pull back a little bit. But it helped me get through, like I said, the time with Connor, all the other stresses
Right.
going on. It was a nice breakaway. And so by then I've been now going to car shows more often, meeting more people, things
Right.
like that. And when the car got done, it's like, okay, now let's go have some fun, right? And so Connor loves this car. He loves getting in the back seat. We had a car seat that had basically matched the interior of this, and all set up, kind of matching for
That's cool.
going out. And he would just giggle when you'd hit the gas. And,
Yeah.
he just enjoyed it. And so a couple of mutual friends of mine at the car show basically started talking about, there was another guy that did car shows for kids.
Yeah.
And so it kind of got the idea to do that. And so with some friends of mine at the time, we basically started Connor's Car Show.
That's very cool.
And the intent was to do one show, 1 year, give back, and kind of say, I've done my part.
And here you are 7 years later, huh?
7 years later.
June 26th is coming up.
June 26th
right?
is coming up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after the first show, we had the mayor call us. We had a couple other people on the council call us. We had some folks in the police department that liked to call us. We had all these different people said, you got to do this again.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of went from there. But yeah, building the car, it was, like I said, it was a getaway. It's been in a couple of times since, because after the first thing, you never have enough power, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So as bright as we are about stuff like that, right? I said it's not enough power, right?
Yeah.
I took it back and I said it's not enough power. So Dane pulled the motor out, went back to the speed shop, put AFR heads on it, and boosted it up probably about another 120 horse.
Yeah.
And then got it back and said, okay, now this is more fun. And then never having a car that's a cammed car before.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right? I'm driving it like a normal car, and I'm like, man, I just spent all this money, and this car it should feel faster than this, right? And so I call up Dane and gets the engine builder on there, and the guy goes, how are you driving it? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you have a 2800 stall on there. Are you bringing the RPMs up to get the motor in the RPM range? Because it's happy between 3 and 6, really.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. He goes, well, you're not driving it right. He goes, get the RPMs up. It'll be a lot more fun. And so took it out, and boy, he was right.
Yeah.
You get it above $3,000, and it's a whole different car. So I was like, okay, now we're good.
That's cool. That's cool. Made it more fun.
Yeah, the downside of it, and my wife's a pretty bright lady, and tires last about 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, how long should tires last? I said, well, 3,000 miles, I said, that's like 5 years, because we don't drive it all the time. She's a weekend driver. I said, the tires are, they're rated for only a certain amount of years, and so I'm trying to go down
expired.
I'm trying to go down this whole road, and she's like, yeah, but I think tires last like 10 years, don't they? I'm like,
yeah.
So I'm like, look, I have a lot of fun. It's miles per gallon, not miles per
Absolutely.
gallon. Right?
Absolutely.
So, But yeah, it's so this has kind of been dubbed Connor's car. He loves this car. If I fire it up, he comes out of the house right away. Right, he wants to go for a ride. Pretty much, if he has a choice, we give him a choice when he wants to go for a ride.
Sure.
90% of the time, it's
the Mustang.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he'll want to go truck once in a while, but most of the time it's this car.
That's awesome.
And what's funny is he grew up in the back seat, right?
Yeah.
With his car seat.
Yeah.
So that's his spot in the
Right.
back. And I've tried getting him in the front seat with me because he's big enough now to ride in the front.
Yeah.
Always in the back seat.
It's his spot.
It's his
It's
spot.
his spot, man.
It's his spot. So
That's cool.
I'm technically, this is his car.
Yeah.
I'm the chauffeur or
Yeah.
the driver, right?
That's a good way of looking
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. And so we take him out in this car. We go for rides.
That's cool.
And have fun with it. And so it's turned out to be a fun time for a father and son to go have some fun with it. So
Very cool. Well, I know you've got a lot done to the car. So
it's not a stock car anymore.
It is not a stock car. So elaborate more on the build. I see through the wheels we got some Willwood brakes.
Yeah.
You know, we looked underneath the hood, and it's gorgeous underneath the hood.
Nice.
So you know, tell us more about the build.
Well, it's I wanted a sleeper car, right? I don't want to say this because my black truck is crazy, but I wanted something that basically looks nice and clean, but doesn't show off, you know, here I am type car. So I wanted to build something that looked fairly tame, right? And so that was the intent going into the build is I wanted to focus around it. So it's got the American racing wheels on it, which kind of went with this era, right? The tires are the rated TAs, which do okay, but they don't really track very well, right?
They're era correct.
Yeah, they're error correct. But you know, when I looked at it again, we said if I build the original car, it's worth X. If I go resto-modded, it's worth more, right? And so I started doing my research and talking to different people, and I wound up going with Global West suspension. So it's got coilover adjustable front. It's got Global West. I asked for a track pack is what I wanted to do, SCCA racing.
Yeah.
So it's the whole suspension system is built towards that.
Gotcha.
So it's leaf rear. It's got the frame connectors to stiffen up the frame. It's got the coilover fronts that are adjustable. It's a 331 stroker, so we took the 302 and
Very
put
nice.
out 331 stroker. It's got AFR heads on it, comp cam. It's a 750 carb on it. And then what was interesting is through this process, again, the motor flexed too much.
Okay.
And with the suspension there's not a whole lot of room.
Yeah.
So the headers that were on it didn't work. So it's got JBA shorty headers on it. It's got old air products for AC. It's Griffin radiator. And it's got the four-wheel with disc brakes on it, which helped quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And what's interesting is I thought we'd have to put a power booster on it, but
No.
stops just fine.
Yeah.
So there's no problem there. And then it's got, I'm trying to remember the name of the company, Ring Brothers, front hinges on it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of a story there because the trunk has Ring Brothers.
Interesting.
And so it was interesting when you go to the Ring Brothers website, at least at the time, it was confusing on if you're buying one hinge or a pair, right? And dummy me, you should know that everything comes in a pair when you're buying hood hinges, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, it's $650 for a hinge.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I really like that hinge.
Yeah.
So I put money away, saved it, all these things you do, and wound up putting away like, $1,400 and said, okay, now I'm ready to go buy hinges.
Right.
So I call them up and say, okay, I want to buy these hinges, and this is the piece I need. This is your Mustang. It's like, okay. And he said, $650. I'm like, is that for both of them? He goes, yeah. I'm like, how much for the rear? So we wound up buying front and rear Ring Brother hinges for it. And, just started piecing stuff together. It's got an interior from TMI. This is kind of the early version.
Yeah.
So the new stuff TMI's got is really cool.
Yeah.
But at the time, I wanted the side bolsters, and I wanted the original pony emblems on the seat.
Yeah.
Again, because I wanted
Which I like. I mean, it's a nice touch. It
I
keeps
wanted
it
to make
kind
it
of
look that
nostalgic,
Yep. So we bought all new foam, the TMI seat covers, everything else. We did a custom carpet interior in it, and then custom carpet trunk on side. What's interesting is this car, it's lizard skin and dyno matted.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but only from the fenders back.
Gotcha.
So if you tap on the front fenders, you can tell it's original steel.
Yeah.
the rest of the car, it's all silent, right?
Nice.
So
Yeah.
we wanted to make it more soundproof. And then kind of particular about things. So
Sure.
I don't like, some people do, but I don't like when you're driving behind a car and you can see the mufflers, right? And a lot of
I
these
agree.
old school cars,
I agree.
you know, they got the front end lower, the back
Right.
end up, and you see those great big mufflers in
Right.
the back. I just don't like that. So I really wanted to tuck up the exhaust as close as we could to the body,
Yeah.
and not so close though you get this drone driving down the
Right.
road. And so I did a lot of research looking at what kind of mufflers I want. So it's X-pipe and went with Borla's, because Borla
okay.
made a smaller muffler,
Yeah.
and you can see all the way through it, right?
Right.
It's not one of these where it's got chambers,
Right.
so you see all the way through it. So it gives it a real nice sound.
Yeah.
But when you're behind it, you don't see the mufflers, and so it's all tucked up, nice and neat inside there. It's got a 411 rear end in it, so it gets up and goes pretty good. The highway's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's got a 4-speed AOD.
Gotcha.
So with the overdrive, 65 miles an hour, I'm running about 2,500
Yeah.
RPM. So not bad. You know, at 80, you're running, I think, 31. And then 100, I think you're like 42. Not that
Still
I know
not bad.
anything. So
you don't get that high.
once, I think. But it turned out to be, it's a good, reliable, streetable car that's fun to drive, right? And I mean, everything works on it. The AC works on it, the blinkers work, the wipers work. I mean, everything works, which is what you want. So I wanted to have a reliable, good running car that you can go down the road with,
Yeah.
right? Now, the only problem I have that I still got to work on a little bit is I should have bought the bigger radiator system up front, but I went with the Griffin package that I bought. And in the summertime, running the AC, if you're stuck at a traffic light, it will get warm on you.
Really?
Yeah. So it had a 2300, I think, CFM fan
Yeah.
on it. And so we wound up putting a 3300 CFM.
Yeah.
And that helps, but even still, there's just not enough capacity.
Right.
And so in the heat of the Texas summer, when you're running the AC,
Yeah.
it will get a little warm on you, and you've got to turn the AC off, which is never fun in Texas heat.
No, it isn't.
So,
No, it isn't.
so that's the only downside. So that's, you know, I'd like to say you get done with a build, but it's never done.
Right.
So there's a few things that I'd like to upgrade on it. You know, I still think I'm going to stick with the nostalgic style wheels, but I got to go to 17-inch rims to get sticky tires. So these are 50s.
Actually, it'd be a good look for it, especially more in the pro touring style and resto-mod, and it seems like that's where everybody's going with the larger wheels.
Yeah, they don't make, there's to my knowledge, there's only 2 or 3 tires you can get in 15.
Yeah.
And it's BF Goodrich, it's Cooper, and then I think you can get some Mickey Thompson drag radials in that size, but I don't want to go drag radials necessarily. So I'm kind of limited on what you can get.
Yeah. Well, Ty, thanks for sharing with us about your Mustang and how you got it and the build process and everything. So let's talk more about the car show.
Yeah, that's my passion. So
Transitioned into an annual event and how it got started and.
well, it got started. There was a gentleman his name's Ken Reed. Hopefully he's not mad at me for mentioning his name, but he had a car show for his granddaughter, and she has Down syndrome. And I gotta see, he put a boatload of work into it. Right, he didn't have a staff or anything else either. But it just got me thinking about, can we do something like that? A little bit different cause for a different charity, right? Things like that. And so I talked to some people I was hanging out with, and they basically helped, you know, kind of push the idea forward and say, yeah, let's go do this. And so with their help, you know, we basically put together a car show, and we basically decided to do it at Keller Town Hall. There had been a show there before that was put on, and it did pretty good. It was just a nice area to do it in, but it wasn't a place that you would think of having a car show, right, at the town hall. At that time, nobody was doing car shows at the town halls. And so I went up meeting with the city and walking through everything, and that's just a lot of work, right? And so at this time, we're not a 501c3. We're just doing a car show. And so we got together, again, lots of help from the friends, and put together this first car show. And my intent was to raise 10 grand and donate, split it between Down Syndrome Partnership and Cook Children's. And those two are very special to me. Down Syndrome Partnership, basically, they don't get funding from, you know, a lot of people. They're not self-funded, so it's all donations or grants or things like that they have to get, right? They're not funded by, you know, any big corporation or necessarily, right? They gotta work for their donations. And then Cook Children's, which is interesting. Most people think, well, it's insurance money and everything else, right? Backing up a little bit around why we did the car show, when Connor was born, right, he had immediate problems. So we couldn't take him home, right? And so you think about it as a parent, you're a new parent, you want to have your son or your daughter, you want to hold them, you want to take them home. Well, we couldn't do that. So Connor couldn't breathe on his own. He had to have help with that, right? He had tubes down his nose for feeding him. You know, there's all these things. My wife didn't even get to see him, I think, till 6 or 7 hours after he was born. And so he was in NICU for a while, right? He was in NICU for the first, I want to say, almost 2 months of his life. And we got to bring him home for, I think, 1 day. And he didn't do well at home because he didn't have all the equipment and everything else hooked up. We had some equipment, but not everything. And so we wanted to have him taken back to NICU. And it was, I thank goodness I worked for a company and a boss that was pretty open. Yeah. And so he basically allowed me to work from home, do whatever I could to take care of family, right? And so we had a schedule. I mean, my schedule was from 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning. NICU was closed to everybody. You couldn't go in there. And then at 6 to 8 at night, they were closed. That's when they did the rounds for patients. And due to HIPAA, you can't be in there. We're to talk about other kids and stuff. Gotcha. And so we get kicked out. So basically, I would be there at 8 o'clock in the morning when we could get in. My wife would come down with her mom at the time. And then at about 11 o'clock, I would go to work. And then I would come back leave work about 2 o'clock, pick up my mother-in-law, take her to the house. She would start, cleaning the house or cooking or whatever. And then I'd go back, get my wife, bring her back home, and then I would go back down there until basically after 8 o'clock when I could go back down there. And I'd be there till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning with him. And that was my cycle, right? And at 2 months of age, we basically had to make the decision on, do we do heart surgery or not? And you think about that, it's looking back, I talk about it fairly easy now, but looking back on it, I mean, what a decision you have to make. And you have a chance your child may not make it. There's a 10% chance he couldn't make it. And so a 1% chance is a risk to me. And basically we just had to make the decision. He was not going to survive without it. So we couldn't wait till he was 2 years old and bigger and everything else. And so we typical things, we researched the country looking for the best kids heart surgeon, right, and everything else. It turned out that Cook Children's had one of the best in the country, in top 5, Dr. Tam. And so we decided to stay here, have the surgery done. Well, during that whole process, one of the interesting things that came out of it, again, insurance covered the medical part of it, right? But what they don't cover is the things like my wife would not leave my son. So she was down at the hospital for 11 days. No shower, no bathrooms, no bed to sleep in, nothing, right? Because he's in with curtains with all the other kids that are getting medical treatment, right? And so what we did is we started talking to the nurses and different things like that, and it turns out that in order to get all that stuff, it takes donations to do that. It's because the hospital, again, is covering the medical part. They're not covering amenities, right? And so when we went back here, I think it was 3 years ago, we got a tour through the cardiac ward because they get a decent-sized check from us every year from the show, and I should say it's from us. It's from all the patrons that come to the show and all the people that donate, right? It's their money. But we want to see where it goes. And they gave us a tour of the facility now, and the heart ward has their own rooms. So the parents now have their own bathroom, their own place to sleep, privacy, right? And that's important when you're going through all that. You don't realize how important that is until you go through it. And so that's why they're important to us. And then Down Syndrome Partnership, what they do is they connect the families with new parents, with other parents that have gone through it, right? So you get experience. They connect them with therapists and doctors, and in some cases legal help if you need legal help, right? They're kind of the conduit for all that. And so those two organizations became very important to us. So we wanted to give back. So the show was to raise money, raise some awareness about Down syndrome, and give it back to the community.
Yeah.
People ask and think Connor gets the money or goes towards, something for him for medical or things like that, and they're shocked when I tell them he doesn't get anything, right? And so then they question, okay, why do you do this, right? This is a lot of work, a lot of effort. And the benefits that Connor gets out of it is he gets to socialize with people. He gets to interact with people. And the other part that I do this for is, if you think about it, we want to raise awareness about these kids and what they can do, right?
Right.
And want to give them opportunities.
Right.
But there's also another piece of it as a dad, right? This is a really sad statistic, is that special needs kids, 7 out of 10 of them are single parents, and most of the time that's a mom, right? The dads have left, or circumstances, whatever, it's a single mom raising these kids. And so the other part is a lot of these kids, because parents may be either embarrassed or it's a struggle. Don't get me wrong. We can't just get up and say, hey, let's go to a movie. Let's go out to eat. We can't just get up. It has to be planned to go, because Connor's feeding schedules and everything else, it has to be all planned out. And so we don't have that luxury to be able to just go do that. But I want to encourage parents to get their kids out, because so many of the parents don't take their kids out. They stay at home, they watch TV, they eat, right? They don't go out and do things. And so what I want to do is encourage people not only to accept these kids, but also want to encourage the parents and families to bring the kids out, right? One of the things I started years ago, and I've actually kind of socialized this with work as well. I had the opportunity to talk to a bunch of people at work about this, and that is, whether you see somebody different, right, whether it be skin color, ethnicity, whatever, right? Connor's different. He looks fairly normal, but he acts different. And so, as a person, when we see anything different, what's your reaction, right? We just look. You don't mean to. It's not being offensive or mean. Mm-hmm. We look out of curiosity, right?
Sure.
Kids are very curious, right? And so kids will look and watch Connor, stuff like that. Some accept him right away, others don't. But what I do is I take that as an opportunity to go introduce myself, introduce Connor.
Yeah.
And watching the people's eyes light up and flip from not knowing how to interact and feeling awkward about the situation.
Sure.
I take it as an opportunity to go introduce myself. When I'm out, and if I don't have Connor with me, and if I see a family that has a special needs child, I make a point of it going to introduce myself. Go say hi, and I talk to the child. I talk to the kid.
Yeah.
I don't talk about them, right? Because most of these kids can understand what you're saying, right? There's kids out there, or people out there, that can't verbalize,
right?
But they understand what you're telling them. And so talking to them like a person instead of talking to their parents or somebody else about them,
yeah.
Right? You got to be cognizant about those kind of things. So I just take the opportunity to go meet people, go talk about it, and I've got some great friends now that do that. Connor's got, what's interesting is we have this group of people that we've surrounded ourselves from. I should say Connor surrounded himself from. It's one of his first teachers is lifelong friends of ours now. Her daughter, who everybody thinks is my daughter, Elizabeth, she's been with Connor since he was, I think, 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
Right? She's looked after him, taken care of him. Now, she's often married and doing her own things now, too, but she still comes by and sees Connor. Her husband, that she's married to now, she made him come meet Connor before she would say, we can go on a date.
Yeah.
Because she said, if Connor doesn't like you, you're out. So it's just interesting. He's kind of helped surround us with these people that, and all of us have the focus around what's best for him, right? And so we have this kind of joke around there, well, Connor wants it, or it's good for Connor, right? And things happen, it's like, well, how did Connor need this? Well, Connor said he wanted it. Right? Yeah. So it's kind of a little running joke around there. But all kidding aside, we wanted to give him the best opportunities and the best life he can have, right? Yeah. He'll probably never be able to go live on his own. He may not be able to work, but hopefully we can get him there, right? We don't want to limit him on what he's doing, but at the same time, we want to provide for him just in case, right? And so the show really is about, two causes really, or three causes. Is raising awareness about these kids. It's raising funds to help support the charities that do stuff for these kids. Yeah. And then it's trying to help parents and other people get around him. So Connor, he's a rock star, right? No joke. It's kind of funny. If we go to the grocery store and he's with me, people know him. They have no idea who I am, which is fine with me. So I'm known as Connor's dad, and my wife's known as Connor's mom, and we're fine with that, right? But we get people in the store all the time come, hey, is that Connor? And so it's really helped him in the school life, right? Because people know who he is. They know he's got a big car show, right? Yeah. And so the kids have been really good about accepting him.
Yeah.
My wife years ago, I'll say years ago, it's probably 2 years ago, she goes and picks him up every day, right? He could probably ride the bus, but I'm like, no, you go get him,
Yeah.
you take him, right? And so she does that, and she went to pick him up, and Connor doesn't like to leave the school till all the other kids are gone. He likes to watch the other kids leave and
Yeah.
give them knuckles and stuff like that. Well, there were some kids playing, they were playing kickball afterwards. And my son is just happy just watching them, right? Because he likes to do that. And my wife was so impressed that these kids got up, went and got my son, brought him over there to play with them and be part of their game.
Oh, that's
so he was
cool.
the kicker, kicking the ball
That's
to him,
very
right?
cool.
And it just impressed me that this younger generation is much more accepting than I think a lot of us give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
It was just neat to watch. My wife said that good thing she was in the van because she was in tears.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just kind of neat to watch. But again, that socialization, getting him in the community, right? That's all helped him.
Yeah.
So the show, again, he doesn't get financial help from that, but all these other things are, pieces of that show and what we're doing for him.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you and your wife have done a great job. I mean, that's, you were. How can anybody say anything about until they're in your shoes, and having
it was tough to go through
a special needs
Yeah.
child. I mean, that's a tough experience. But you mentioned earlier about the engagement. I thought that was fascinating and amazing. Where you are right. People tend to stare, right? Whether you're really tall,
Right.
you're very short, you're different,
Right.
Tattoos, whatever, piercings, you stare.
Right.
But people don't engage.
Right.
And that's very cool that you do engage and you introduce yourself, and Connor and
Well, I mentioned before that Connor has really, without verbalizing it, has made us better people.
yeah.
Right? And I'll give all the credit to my wife. I mean, she's the one that takes care of him. She's the one that looks after him. She's the one that makes sure he's got health stuff taken care of in school and
Sure.
everything else, right? It allows me to focus on the car show,
Right.
focus on work, right,
Yeah.
and do things around the house.
Right.
She takes 90%
Yeah.
of the workload of Connor, right? And it allows us to do these other things, which
Sure.
helps other people. So that's a big part of it. She's not the outgoing, let's go talk to everybody person.
Right.
But she's the get it done, right,
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
The glue that keeps everything together.
Absolutely.
So, because I can't, we talk about it, her job is taking care of Connor, right?
Yeah.
And we're fortunate enough to be in a position where she can do that.
Yeah.
She by far has the tougher job, right? I get to go off and do work and meet with people and do these other things,
Right.
right? And she doesn't get to do that, right? She's given up her life for him.
Yeah.
So, and then all these, it's not just my wife, right? It's all these moms.
Oh, amen to that.
And so
amen to that.
I think about it, and my wife and I talk about it. Think about the parents again that are single moms
Yeah.
that have to work,
Yep.
right? That have to do all these other things and manage, especially these kids. I mean,
Yeah.
hats off to them. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
So I really don't. So it's just a huge stress, and they, with that comes all kinds of other things, right? And so, again, the show is not just about cars, right?
Right.
It has a much bigger meaning about it. We get to use them, and I always say it's a pun, but we get to use it as a vehicle to get
Oh,
to
absolutely.
a means to an end, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'll say this, the car community is, for the most part, a great group of people. I mean, I wouldn't have met yourself, right?
I agree.
So-
I agree. I think we've said on every show that the car community is unlike anything else out
Right.
there. I don't care if you're into sports or hunting or fishing or there's no other community, and it's worldwide.
Yeah,
And
it's such a giving community, right?
It is.
And that's the thing that people don't understand is that
Yeah.
a lot of these people. I mean, there's some. Don't get me wrong. There's some people in there that are they're in it for themselves, right? And that's it. But
Yes.
you're going to get that everywhere.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But by and large, I'm just amazed, and we've got some folks that have been with us for years in Connor's Foundation,
Yeah.
Connor's Car Show. I mean, I've got my sponsors that have been with me every year, right? Good, bad, every year.
Yeah.
And they continue to support us, whether it be with, stuff or with funds or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And that's what's amazing to me is that you've got these people that you didn't know at all,
Yeah.
right? And have stepped up basically and said, I want to help.
Yeah.
I mean, my very first sponsor was the Cleaners of Keller. And I was nervous about going, I mean, you know, we're all somewhat prideful, right? And to go
Right.
ask somebody to give money was, that was tough.
Yeah.
You know? And my very first one is I'd met John, because he was the person I took my clothes to for cleaning.
Yeah.
And just a really nice guy,
Yeah.
right? And so I was pretty nervous asking him.
Yeah.
And I went up and asked him. I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about trying to grow sponsorship and everything else." And before I even finished what I was saying, he goes, "I'm in."
Yeah.
He goes, "I want to be a title sponsor." He says, "I'm in." And it wasn't probably until 3 years later that he actually shared with me why he was so quickly to jump into that. And it turns out that he has relatives that have Down syndrome,
Oh, wow.
but he didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
You know, he just right away, "I'm in." And I was like,
Yeah.
well, that was a lot easier than I thought, right? But there was something behind it.
Yeah.
And as you start being open with people and explaining your stories and not being necessarily ashamed about
Sure.
what it is,
Sure.
right? You're amazed at the number of people that we all have things going on in our life.
Yep.
Right? And I tell this with my employees that I work with right now, is understand that everybody's going through something.
Yeah.
Try not to let our own feelings basically drive the situation or make it worse, right?
Right.
Be compassionate, be
Yeah.
understanding, because I don't care who you are, somebody's going through something.
Oh, yeah.
Grandparents with health problems, or parents with health problems, or your own health problems, or financial problems. Somebody's going through something, right?
Yep.
We're all dealing with different pressures. And so again, I'll say this quite honestly, I would have been that person who would have never thought about that.
Yeah.
Right, because I've been fortunate. My family's health has been pretty good. Our health's been pretty
Yeah.
good. I would never have been the person to say we need to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
I've learned that through time and with Connor.
Yeah.
Right, he's taught me patience, even though I don't have a lot still.
Yeah.
And he's taught me how to be a better person and think about things differently.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing when you start looking back at it. Is that, you know, he's truly made me a better person. So, and I'm pretty proud to say that. So
That's incredible.
And he doesn't talk. So that's what's crazy, right? He'll say some words to us, but
Yeah.
he doesn't talk. He'll give you knuckles all day long,
Yeah.
but he understands what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? Because you go in and talk to him, he'll shake his head, yes, he knows what you're saying. He just doesn't, right now, he doesn't tell you back those full sentences, right?
And how old is he now? 10? 11?
He's 13.
He's 13?
He's 13.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so he's going through the voice
Wow.
change and all these other things. You know,
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking to hear, but yeah, he's 13. So he's getting, you know, more independence and all
Yeah.
these other fun things, and
Yeah.
it drives my wife crazy.
One of my good friends who happens to live behind me, he has a son who has Down syndrome, and you know, he holds down a job. I see him walking to work all the time. He's out there, you know, cleaning his shoes. He likes his shoes very clean.
Yeah.
And you know, just a great kid. We've had him over for many parties.
Very
and
particular.
yeah, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
So-
they like things a certain way.
yeah,
They like a routine.
Yeah.
All of us do, but
Yeah.
these kids really like those routines.
yeah. Always super friendly.
yeah.
Doesn't talk a lot, you know, but hey, how you doing? You
Right.
know, so, but
Yeah. How cool to be able to be happy, you know, be happy when you see people all the time,
Yeah.
right? Very simple life,
Yeah.
right? And enjoy it, right?
yeah,
There's a ice cream place I haven't made it to yet called Howdy's Homemade. They're in Dallas, here,
oh, okay, yeah.
and they're expanding.
Yeah.
And all of his employees have Down syndrome.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, and he says best employees he's ever had. So it's
incredible.
They're either Down syndrome or autistic, but they're
Yeah.
all special needs
Yeah.
kids, and so I've got to make it over there and go, you know, visit him, stuff
Absolutely.
like that. I don't make it to Dallas a whole lot, being on
Yeah.
the Keller side. But,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one
You're
of
a
my,
bit far.
That's one. Yeah,
You're a bit far.
that's one of my goals though. Is I got to get in there and,
Yeah.
and I want to meet him, and I want to meet the young people that work
Yeah.
for him. I think
That's
how cool
very
is
cool.
that? We've talked about doing something like that with Connor, and maybe down the road we've got
Yeah.
a few ideas about something
Yeah.
like that. Because I think he would enjoy having a job and doing something like that.
Yeah.
But this is the downside for me that I got to recognize more is super protective,
Yeah.
right? And so we need to be able to let him expand, experience new
Right.
things, but we're so protective of him at the same time. It's like we've got to let that go, and that's
Sure.
a struggle, right? So, because you're concerned about every step and where he's doing and what's going on, and it's kind of funny. He's escaped out of our house a couple times now.
Has he?
Scared the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he just likes to go explore, and he always goes the same direction,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, where's Connor? You know, he's looking around down the street. You know, it's like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Right? We've got a security gate and all these other things. Like, no, he a little escape
Yeah.
artist. He got
Yeah,
out a couple
there you
times.
go.
So it's
There you
like,
go.
Okay, gotta go find him. But yeah, it's but he's a good young man, and he's learning. So it's just with Connor, it's all these kids, right? It's a process, and things take longer. So you know, as a parent, and you're a parent, you have these expectations for your kids, right? By this age, they should be doing this. By this age,
Right.
they should be doing this. And what we learned with Connor is, yes, you want to set those expectations, but the timing is different.
Yep.
And so with Connor, it's when he decides he wants to do it, he does it.
Yeah.
But it's not until he decides he wants to do it.
Yeah.
We've tried all kinds of different things to get him to do things. I mean, he didn't walk till he was 4. But then when he started walking, it was like he'd been walking the whole time. Right? He's just like, all of a sudden, oh, there he goes. So it's like, okay, well, you could have done this a long time ago, right?
You've been secretly walking.
Yeah, you've been making us pick you up and do all these things, and it's like, man. So he's got us wrapped around, and he knows it, right?
Yeah.
He's pretty.
That'll never change.
No.
It never changes.
No,
You
I
know.
mean, my dad still acts like I'm his kid.
Yeah.
You know, my dad's 79 years old.
Yeah.
So, but he's still super protective of his kids.
Yeah.
So, you're right. That never
That
goes
never
away.
changes, you know. I mean, you always want to do the best you can for your kids, protect your kids. I mean, they could be out of the house and states away, and you're still
Yeah.
wondering, like, are they okay? It's like,
Yeah.
what can I do? And I mean, it's
Yeah.
that never goes away.
It doesn't. So
never goes away.
with Connor, we've had to go through all kinds of different stuff that you got to figure out from legalities, because there's all kinds of different things that you. This is where I give credit to my wife, is that there's programs and benefits that you can get, but you got to know how to get them.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to get them through the loopholes and stuff like that, you'll never find them.
Right.
Right. So again, that's part of what Down Syndrome Partnership does. But my wife found them all on her own.
Yeah.
So you fight all these different things that you have to do. I mean, you got to have special needs trust for these kids, because they can't have. If here's the crazy part: if they have a net worth of over $2,000,
Yeah.
all their benefits go away.
What?
Yeah. So you have to have a special needs trust
Wow.
and funnel everything into the trust, so that they actually don't have any money. So, because if they have
That's-
assets of that, then there's no benefits. So any state benefits you get or federal benefits you get, go away.
I'm just shocked by the low number.
Yeah, it's a very
Like,
low number.
That's a
Yeah.
ridiculously
Yeah.
low number.
So there's all these things that, again,
Wow.
as a parent of a special needs kid,
Yeah.
you know, but if you don't, right, you don't know about it. Well, it's like
Wow.
my friends of ours that we've, again, we talk about, we used to before Connor,
Yeah.
right? It was, you want to go? Yep, let's go.
Yeah.
Spur of the moment thing.
Sure.
We can't do that, right? You want to make a trip to go to Phoenix to go see family. Well, that's a big ordeal,
Right.
right? Between taking his stuff and making sure he's taken care of and everything else.
Yeah.
Love my wife, but it's everything in the kitchen sink goes.
Right. Right.
So those trips become quite cumbersome to
Yeah.
do. So,
I can imagine.
it's so we try to make sure family comes out here as much as possible and do
Yeah.
things like that. And matter of fact, I've got hopefully my brother-in-law and sister coming out, because I added to our stuff to do is we talk about K5 blazers.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
My brother-in-law is a fanatic for K5 blazers,
Yeah.
but he's never restored one.
Yeah.
He's had 3 of them. This is his 4th one now. So I found a friend of mine had one,
Yeah.
sold it to me for a great price. And I knew he wanted it, so we sold it to him. And then he wanted me to get it restored here, and then he's going to come pick it up when it's all done, because
Yeah.
we have the connections here. We know all the people.
Yeah.
So sure. So it's going through its process and getting started. We're getting pictures of it now. So
Yeah.
Jay Riggs is doing the restoration for
Oh,
us on
nice.
this one. You know
Nice.
Jay Riggs?
I don't know him personally. We
Yeah,
actually
nice
did.
guy.
We did a cruise and did a stop. It was a very interesting cruise. So some of our staff had stopped by his location while I was setting up a car show in Denton. So it was Park Cruise, Park Car Show.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to make that journey to his shop.
Yeah.
But we had videographers there and team members and everything. I saw. I mean, what a great place.
Yeah, he moved. I don't know if you were his new place. He moved to a new place, I think, 2 years ago. So he's out past the Speedway now.
Yes. Yes.
So, but what a fabricator! Him and his team are tremendous.
Yeah.
And so this K5 has a lot of rust.
Yeah.
And so it's got fabrication stuff that
Gotcha.
done. So, and Jay, he makes trophies for us every year too.
Very cool.
He donates and makes trophies.
Very cool.
So, I thought, well, let's take it out there. So he's getting started on it. So we're restoring a K5. So we'll see where that
sounds like a good time.
Yeah, LS swap, and
there you go.
Getting the whole. It's a
there you go. 4-wheel drive.
4-wheel drive. Yeah. And it'll go to Arizona when it's done. But it's interesting. We talk about restorations again. The process.
Oh yeah.
My brother-in-law's a great guy, but he's never restored a car.
Right.
And so when you start talking about the cost.
To
do it, right? So he wants
it's astronomical.
He wants something very nice.
Yeah.
Right, but he wants basically a very nice driver. He's not wanting the high-end show quality.
Right.
So, but he wants a nice driver, right? And so we're going through stuff, and I said, figure out what you want up front, because as a builder, if you know the roadmap, it makes it a lot easier to do.
Sure.
So we worked on building out this roadmap, and I'll never forget, he sends me this picture of this interior. He goes, I want to do something like this. I said, really? I said, you want that? He goes, yeah.
You veered off the roadmap.
Yeah, I said, that's a $40,000 interior. He goes, what? I said, yeah, that's about a $40,000 interior. He says, how can it cost that much? And then we start going through all these things. And start talking about paint jobs. I said, well, paint jobs are at least 20 and up. I said, for even just a nice driver.
Yeah.
And he's like, but we've peeled him off the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? He's back down to knowing kind of where things cost, and we got a budget in mind, and I think we'll get there and be pretty close.
Well, good.
To it, so.
Good.
But it'll be a nice K5, and the great thing is I told him, I said, look, he said, you're in Arizona, Jay's here.
Yeah.
I said, if you take the vehicle back to Arizona and something goes wrong, Jay's not going to pay for it, right?
Right.
You got to bring it back here for Jay to fix it. I said, so I'm going to drive it for a few months before you come. So he goes, I said, I want to make sure everything works, everything else, but I got to drive it for a few months.
Snuck it in there, yeah.
Oh yeah. So I'll get to drive his Blazer around for a few months and have fun with it. So
there you go.
But hopefully it's done within the next year and a half or so. We'll see.
All right, Ty. So we've talked about your fleet of vehicles here, the 65 Mustang, Connor's Car Show, but let's get to know a little bit more about you. So,
that one's harder to talk about than it is Connor's Car Show.
So about you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, pretty simple stuff though. When did you know that you had a passion for cars?
Good question. I think all my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember the little toys we had and the Tonka trucks and playing with that stuff, and grew up around the time Evel Knievel was a big thing, right?
Yeah.
So had all those toys, and I've always enjoyed it. I mean, I remember when I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and I'm modifying my Schwinn bicycle, right?
Wow.
Because you're trying to figure out how to make things different.
Right.
So
right.
I've always liked, and this sounds really strange because I have an office job now. I've always liked working with my hands.
Sure.
Right? So, and I've had a bunch of different jobs throughout my career, but I've always liked working with my hands. And so I was always playing with stuff, but also when I was growing up, my parents, my dad had a good job, but he didn't make a lot of money until basically all the kids were out of the house.
Gotcha.
And I told him, I said, why do you wait till all the kids are gone before you start making, decent money?
Yeah.
But he's an engineer by trade, right? But great dad, wasn't into cars. But I've always been around them, and the friends I grew up around as kids. I grew up as Flagstaff as a little kid, and it was bicycles and skateboards and the scooters and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So, always kind of had that thrill seeker type mentality and go do stuff and have fun and go fast.
Yeah.
I had a go-kart but no engine, so we would push it to the top of the hill and then just go down the hill as fast as we could.
We used to use shopping carts.
Yeah, and our brake pedal was the steel pad or the steel piece that just rubbed against the tire.
Yeah,
right? That didn't work very good.
Didn't work at all.
No, especially on big hills, right? You weren't stopping, so it crashed into trees. But I just always liked stuff, and I remember when I moved to Phoenix, I think I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
I got my first mini bike. And of course, what do? You go jump it and do crazy things. No shocks on or anything else, right? Well, you break stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep riding, you got to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
And so, how do you fix it? It's trial and error. Some things you didn't get fixed very well, and had to get my dad or my grandpa to come in and help fix stuff. Right. But you had to do that. So, graduated from mini bike to motorcycle to bigger motorcycle to a bigger motorcycle, and then when I got 16, I was into off-roading, so I had Baja bugs and off-road rigs and things like that.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed cars and mechanical things like that. Always had a passion for these old classics.
Right.
Never was in a position to be able to do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you start getting a little bit older and getting things where you've paid for your stuff. And
Absolutely.
you start having a little bit of money that you can do things with is really the timing for this. And so, when I got to the point I could do that, and my wife fortunately let me do it, then I started playing with the cars, and then just kind of graduated from there. The only problem is each of my builds seems to get more expensive.
They generally do that.
Yeah.
And then they're never really done either. Like, I mean, there's always something to do, or you want to change it, or, so I mean,
but
I guess there's worse habits.
That's why the car industry is it's like an addiction, right?
It is.
And the car industry is doing great,
Yeah.
right? There's all kinds of aftermarket. They're there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
They're for us kind of guys and gals that want to go out and do those kind of things, right? So
Agreed.
And it's fun,
Yeah.
It may not be the smartest way to invest your money,
Yeah.
but
It's the funnest.
It is the funnest. But I kind of look at it this way: as long as you take care of your priorities, right? If you take care of your family first, and your investments for being able to retire, things like that first. If you choose to afterwards to go spend money on cars and things like that, then there should be no problem with it, right? And so that's how I get away with it with my family. Is my wife says these things come first, and as long as these things are taken care of, then you can go play. So I get, she likes to give me a hard time, but she has fun with it too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and I didn't touch base on it earlier, but you mentioned that you've bought and sold a lot of vehicles and haven't told her about it. And I gave you a little fist pump for that one because my wife, we've been together almost 20 years, and I have numerous vehicles. I mean, tons of vehicles. And then one day I even came home and I'm like, honey, I bought a house. And I didn't tell her, but we're in real estate. And at the end of the day, it's business. If you're making money off of it, and I flip the cars because the money I make off the flips, it kind of goes back into our hobby. Right. It doesn't affect our home life. And, I'm not taking money out of the kids' college funds or anything crazy like that. So
but was your first one like mine, where you buy it, you bring it home, and your wife goes, "Hey, who's here?"
Well, yeah, it might have been something similar to that. Yeah.
Who's here?
Whose
There's an extra car in the driveway. Who's here?
I bought that. Oh, now it's like, what'd you buy today? So it's we've gotten really accustomed to one another, and it's funny. That's actually how she got her black 86 Silverado.
That's how my wife got her 70 C10.
Yeah.
Same way. It's just like, hey, by the way, dear, bought a truck.
Yep.
Oh yeah, what'd you buy? And then when I told her what it was, she's like, oh, that's a good buy.
Yep.
Right. But
there
was one vehicle though that I did kind of get in trouble for.
Yeah.
And that's when I bought a brand new diesel truck.
Yeah.
She's like, probably should have talked about that one.
Yeah.
That was a little expensive.
Yeah, they're pricey.
Yeah, she was right.
They're pricey.
Should have talked about it. So, but now, we've been together 34 years.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
And, so she's put up with me for a long time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's just because, quite honestly, she doesn't want to train somebody else.
Yeah.
So, I think she says she's got me somewhat trained, and you're good to go. But I think she still has. They're still training, but maybe she's gotten to the point where it's okay. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
We're going to go on. So, no, she's a great woman. She's like I said, 34 years is a long time. So she's done a good thing. You'll appreciate this. I've got a really good lifelong buddy from Phoenix, and when him and my wife get together, it's like war against me, right? They give me harassment and everything else. Well, they basically have both said for years that putting up with me, that they should get a trophy for putting up with me. So for I think it was my 31st wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
I actually went and had a trophy made for my wife.
Yeah.
So her anniversary gift was a trophy.
For putting up with you?
For putting up with me, right? And so
That's awesome.
some wives would go, "You did what? I had to kill you." So like, that is one of the few things my wife has actually kept an anniversary gift.
Yeah.
Right, and it's on the shelf in her office.
Yeah.
And so she cracked up about that.
That's cool.
So she got a trophy for putting up with me for all these years.
There you go.
Now,
There you go.
I can't recommend that for everybody to
For
do.
everybody.
But it worked for me and it worked for us. So
Very cool.
it's pretty
Very cool. Well, with all the builds you've had, is there any vehicle you regret selling? Wish you had back?
There's probably always some of those vehicles. I mean, I had a '67 Mercury Cougar that I really liked.
Oh yeah.
I had a '73 Monte Carlo I really liked. I guess the car. There's been probably a few.
Yeah.
I don't really have regrets because it helped me get to the next one.
Yeah.
I had a beautiful '67 Camaro. I mean, it was beautiful. It probably would have been smart to just modify that one, but I wanted a truck,
Yeah.
right? And so it was time to sell. But I think the only one I probably regretted selling, and it's the one we got back, was that 74x4 truck.
Gotcha.
And we were able to get that one back. So
Yeah.
that's why when we made the deal, when we said we'd sell it, is that
Right.
we knew the guy, we trusted him, right?
Yeah.
He's a great guy, and he held to his word, right?
Very cool.
We bought it back, and so
Yeah.
my wife says we've got it back and it's not for sale.
It's amazing how that works. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how that works. You can get. I've heard that numerous times. People have sold it to a friend, or they sold it to somebody maybe they didn't know, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, a decade later, they buy the car back. I mean, I love those stories.
Yeah,
I love
but
this.
mean, when I was younger, I mean, I didn't have what I would consider super nice cars,
Yeah,
and so they got me by, right?
Yeah.
They were nice enough, they got me by.
Right.
It wasn't until the last 10 years really that I've been able to get some nice stuff.
yeah,
Or nicer cars. I mean, I've always been very particular about cars and make sure they're clean and everything
Yeah.
else, but it wasn't until recently I got them. So this car here, if I ever did sell it, would probably be the one that I go, oh, I should never have done that.
yeah.
It's got too much history behind it and too much, sentimental value to it.
Absolutely.
So, but fortunately, I got a wife that probably would never let me sell it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's,
Those are the hardest ones when your kids grow up around them, and they're. I mean, they become family members. I mean, they really do. Your kids get attached to them.
yeah, I get attached to all my cars. Just ask my wife. She goes, "You get attached to things you don't want to sell them." Like,
Oh wow.
She's right.
Yeah.
She's right.
Yeah.
So that's why she worries about me buying and flipping stuff right now.
Yeah.
'Cause she's like, "You'll want to keep that." I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
So not always, but maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, the '84 Square, I would have liked to have kept that. But
Yeah.
again, it's the right thing to do was to, or we had to really, is to do that to get the new SUV, and it worked out good. It's
Yeah.
a fantastic new car she's
Well,
got.
good. Good.
And
good,
there'll be more Squares available down the road. They things happen, unfortunately, and people get in situations where they need to sell stuff. And
Yeah.
Not that you want to take advantage of somebody,
Well.
but there's deals that come up.
I mean, there's no shortage of square bodies. They went from 73 to 87.
Correct.
And then really to 91 when you take into consideration the
Three-quarter tons.
the 3/4 tons, the crew cabs, the Suburbans, the dualies. And I mean, shoot, they even made short wheelbase ones up until 91 in Mexico.
Yeah, there's-
Slightly different looking, slightly. But I mean,
Didn't they call those V10s? I think
were
that's
they
what they call them.
V10s? You might be right about
Yeah.
that. I don't know much about the Mexican versions.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that was what they called them, but
Yeah.
I'm not positive. But I think
Yeah.
they called them V10s.
Yeah, I do know like 87 was the R10, but I don't know anything after that, like an 88,
There's
one that was made out of
there's
Mexico.
another
I don't know.
Google search.
Another Google search, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We're going to have homework after this,
Yeah, exactly.
this podcast.
Yeah, and I know all of us are going to go do it because
Yeah.
we're car guys.
Yeah.
So we're going to go look at that.
So with so many influencers out there in the automotive scene, celebrities, is there anybody that you that stands out to you that you follow, like on YouTube or any social media?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that I probably follow a lot of them, right? Just
Do you?
because
Yeah.
I'm curious, right?
Yeah.
I follow a lot of them, but I think the builders that I really appreciate is there's probably two. I mean, you could name quite a few, right? There's some really good.
Oh, yeah,
builders out there,
amazing,
right?
amazing, yeah.
Amazing folks out there. But I think the ones that stand out to me really is I really appreciate Shorty, his skill, what he does, his taste.
Yeah.
Right, he builds some some amazing vehicles that you don't until you get and you look at the detail.
Right.
So I appreciate him. And the other person I really like to watch is Dave Kindigan.
I like watching his team too.
Yeah, I've met him and his team a couple times.
Yeah.
And just what you see on the TV show seems to be who they are.
Yeah.
Just really nice folks. But what I appreciate is some of his designs are maybe a little bit over the top for stuff.
Right.
But he does some things that just nobody would think of. I mean, who thought about doing a convertible C10?
Oh.
Right.
That was an incredible. I was telling my wife about him. You got to see this. Like, who thought of that? That's incredible how it folds out into the bed.
Those are things that I would have never thought about it. Right.
Yeah.
Now we've got some local builders around here that just do. I mean, we're fortunate, right?
Yeah.
In Texas, we've got some really good, high quality builders.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a number of them. So there's not a shortage, which is interesting to me to have such a small area. And I appreciate this about Texas is that I did not realize how big the car scene was here until moving here. Right. So Phoenix has got a pretty good car scene.
Yep.
It's nothing like here. I mean, within a 5-mile radius of my house, there's probably 200 classic cars.
Yeah.
Now, it helps that one of my neighbors has 25, right? But there's a lot of, there's just, you go out every weekend, right? Cruise around, you'll always see a classic out driving around, an old car or something like that. So the scene here is, like I said, it's impressive. And I've got to meet, through doing this car show and things like that, I've got to meet quite a few of the builders. And one of the things that I've appreciated, not to get back to Connor's show, but is that we've got a certain parking area that we basically reserve for our sponsors.
Yeah.
And for people like to get on the calendar because they're a sponsor, right?
Yeah.
And so to get in there, it's a $500 minimum, but some pay more to get in there. But the cars that are in there are just, these are cars you normally see at an indoor show only.
Sure.
Right? They're just phenomenal, and I can't believe they bring them out. So we're so honored that they do. But again, I get to appreciate the builders we have here because we got builders here in Texas that I think could stand up to just about anybody in the country.
I agree. Yeah.
But from a celebrity standpoint, I do watch, the Dave Kindig and his team. And, they crack me up for one, and then like I said, I appreciate Short. So I used to watch that show quite a bit. I still watch the one he was on. Yeah. But I've got to know him, and he's such a nice person. Right, and so humble. You would think somebody in that position. I went to SEMA, and I got to spend some time with him at SEMA, and it was interesting because I wound up after an hour just saying, "I'm out of here."
Yeah.
I said I'm not here to basically watch the scene. I've never been to SEMA. I want to go see SEMA.
Right.
Right. And he was just everybody's around him, and he's so kind. He'll autograph everything, talks to everybody. And he called me up later tonight and apologized for not being able to spend so much time. I'm like, what are you apologizing? This is what you're here for. This is your business. But he's just, the quality of work he does is outstanding.
Yeah.
So.
I just met him 2 weeks ago for the first time.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Nice guy.
Yeah, really nice guy.
Very nice guy.
Again, it's very rare that you meet somebody that's of a celebrity status.
Yeah.
That are so true, right? And you see what you see is what you get, right? There's no hidden agenda or anything else, and that's hard to find. But I think again, going back to car community, a lot of the people that we get to meet, what you see is
they're
what
down
they
to
are.
earth and real. Yeah. I agree with that.
They've reached the status. Chip Foose, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows Chip Foose.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys I've met.
Yeah.
Right. Just humble, down to earth. Loves his family and just a good car guy.
Yeah.
So it's an honor to get to meet some of those folks and spend some time around them. But those are the guys right now. I think if I was watching somebody that I could sit there and watch episode after episode after episode of those.
Yeah,
those guys.
It's definitely entertaining. Their talent and skills set is unbelievable because to have the idea versus actually making it function and work and
well, I've had a lot of ideas. They were horrible ideas because they didn't work very good.
Well, one of my favorite questions to ask everybody that comes on this podcast is, having been involved with builds, custom vehicles, what is your advice or words of wisdom to somebody just getting into the scene, maybe buying their first car and wanting to, customize it?
I think that's a really good question. and I guess the biggest thing that I can say right up front is patience.
Patience.
Right,
Yeah.
because as a car owner, you want things and you want it now.
Yeah.
Right, especially when you're younger. Right, you don't. When you get older, you get a little bit past some of that stuff. But the biggest thing is don't try to rush through the job, because taking the time to do it right the first time versus just trying to get it going, right? And sometimes you can't do that because some of these builds, it's also their daily driver.
Right.
I was there before, right?
Yep.
And you've got to get it running because you got to go to work the next day.
Yep.
The biggest thing for me though is understand that it's going to cost more than you thought going in, right?
That's
it always does.
Hey.
Right.
Perfect.
and you got to take time, right?
Yeah.
So this is a 4.5-year build.
Right.
Right. It took time.
Yeah.
And again, that really for me that helped me because I didn't have the cash to just go throw at it for one to say I want it done in a year.
Yeah.
Right. The 4 years gave me time to basically pay installments, right, over time. But the other thing is I would say go out, talk to people, look at other stuff.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed at the number of things you can see and the mistakes that other people have made if you just take the time to go do that. So if you can do those things, I mean, it helps quite a bit. It'll save you a lot of money, a lot of heartaches, a lot of pain. You know, go to car shows, go to communities, go to people like yourself that have been in the car community, right? And ask those questions. Hey, I was thinking about this. You know, what do you want to do here? Does this work, right? Because Lord knows we've all made our mistakes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think patience for me is number one, and two is know it's going to cost more than you think. So get past those two things to be all right.
I agree with both of those, and asking advice. If you thought of it, it's probably already been done, and somebody knows how to do it.
Right.
No, that's true.
The other cool thing about the car community is you'd be surprised that if you start talking to these people, how many people actually offer to help.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I've got a part that'll work for you that
Right.
you can have.
Right.
Right. So don't be afraid to get out and talk to people because the car community is great. I mean, we all have spare parts hanging around.
Yeah.
Do different things. And I've given away a bunch of stuff off of this, right? And if people need things or they want to make it original and things like that, there's parts available. Just talk to people.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to get out there and just open up.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Ty, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast, talking about
Appreciate you having us.
Your cars, your trucks, Connor's Car Show, the charities. It's been an honor, a pleasure. I know you and I have bumped into each other a few times here and there, but we've never gotten a chance to sit down and talk. I know you're usually busy, or I'm usually busy, but we've seen each other a few times over the last 4 years, probably 5 years. It's been a while.
And you've always, look, you guys have always supported us from day one.
Yeah.
Right. And again, going back to car people, right? It's helping each other out, helping us get to the next step, right? And look, we appreciate you having us on the show.
Absolutely.
I mean,
my pleasure.
is, this is great because again, it's a platform for us to be able to reach out to people that we haven't had a chance to meet, right? Or haven't had a chance to tell our story to, and who knows where that goes and who that touches or who that inspires. Or,
Never know.
You don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so if there's anything good that comes out of it, then this is great. And I've enjoyed my time. I mean, you and I could probably sit down and talk cars for a long time. So.
And we're already on 3 hours or something.
Yeah. I'll just say we're seasoned, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you like to watch the video version, certainly check out our YouTube channel, Texas Show Promoters. And if you don't know what Texas Show Promoters is, we are actually the #1 source for all auto event info throughout Texas. Also, if you have a custom vehicle, live in DFW, and would like to tell your story, please reach out to us and let us know. And maybe it'll be your name on our marquee next time. Take care. Bye.